She leaned over my favorite china mug, hissed a word that cut deeper than any knife, and let a thick, contemptuous glob of spit fall straight into the dark swirl of my morning coffee. If you stay with me till the last line, you'll see why that single drop reshaped 3 generations of our family, and how a 68-year-old mother learned the difference between keeping peace and claiming justice. Hello there, precious souls. Lorraine Washington here. Yes, the same Lorraine who believes porch swings are therapy and peach cobbler is currency. Before we dive into today's firestorm, do me one little favor. Type your city in the comments and tell me whether the sun's rising or setting outside your window right now. I adore picturing our worldwide circle sipping stories together. If you've followed my tales before, you know I rarely raise my voice, let alone call my own flesh and blood a name unfit for polite company. But last Tuesday at 7:21 a.m., funny how trauma stamps itself with a time code, my tongue slipped the leash. I called my daughter Geneva a vile snake. I expected anger in return. I did not expect saliva. Let me rewind. Geneva is 41, vice president of a regional bank, proud owner of 3 silk power suits and a Lexus that costs more than my first house. She wasn't always sharp edges and cold marble. Once she collected fireflies in mason jars and begged for second bedtime stories. Somewhere between ballet recitals and boardrooms, warmth drained from her smile, replaced by a tight efficiency that left bruises you couldn't see. My husband Harold and I, married 45 years and still finishing each other's hymns, had invited Geneva and her spouse Vincent for a simple Tuesday breakfast. Harold's blood pressure spiked recently. Doctors said reduce stress. Geneva promised to bring low-sodium turkey bacon, but she arrived late, phone clasped to her ear, barking orders that could rip seams in the air. When she finally clicked off, her gaze swept the table like a quality control inspector searching for flaws. Real bacon, Mother? Seriously? She plucked a strip with 2 fingers as if handling a contaminated rag. Before I could answer, Harold's cough rattled from the living room. Geneva winced, turned, and whispered something under her breath, something like pathetic. A vein pulsed behind my right eye. I carried her coffee, fresh ground Ethiopian blend, a peace offering. Instead, she lectured me. Saturated fat, healthcare costs, irresponsibility. Harold adjusted on the couch, quiet as a reprimanded child. That's when the leash on my tongue snapped. Stop slithering around my kitchen like a vile snake, Geneva. Silence crackled. 1, 2, 3 heartbeats. Then came her answer. A slow, deliberate spit into my cup. The drop hit the surface with a plop louder than thunder. She smiled, only with her lips. Drink it, Mother, I dare you. Something primal surged. I set the mug down so gently the saucer didn't clink, turned to Harold and said, Sweetheart, please step outside for some fresh air. He obeyed, confusion clouding his kind hazel eyes. When the screen door clicked shut, I faced my daughter. You have until sunset to apologize to your father and me. After that, consequences begin. My voice was a whisper, but it felt like God carving commandments in stone. She laughed, delighted. Consequences? What can you possibly do? Cancel my allowance? Oh, wait. You've never given me a dime. Not money, I said. Legacy. Her amusement faltered. Legacy? You'll understand by 7:30 tonight. I walked out, leaving her alone with a cup of spit, cooling like poison. If you think an old woman's threat can't shake a banker's backbone, keep listening. The first step of consequence was prayer, a furious, trembling kind. Lord, show me a path that heals without destroying. Yet as afternoon shadows lengthened, clarity replaced rage. Geneva had forgotten gratitude, forgotten family, forgotten that love without respect rots into duty. If mercy coddles disrespect, mercy becomes betrayal of self. I opened the cedar chest beneath our bed. Inside lay the Washington family deed, 15 acres of riverfront property outside Baton Rouge, left to me by my grandmother Maybelle. Harold and I always planned to pass it equally to our 2 children, Geneva and Marcus. The land isn't just dirt, it's stories. Pecan trees where Harold proposed, wildflowers where our son learned to drive. Geneva expected that deed like a stock dividend. At 4:04 p.m., funny how justice also stamps a time code, I phoned our attorney, Miss Bellamy. Rewrite the will, I said. Marcus becomes sole heir to Maybelle's land. Geneva receives a memory box. Nothing more. Bellamy inhaled. sharply but complied. She'd seen betrayal sculpt steely decisions before. Next, I baked a loaf of banana bread, Geneva's childhood favorite, folded the fresh parchment deed alongside the cooled loaf, and slid both into a basket. Marcus arrived at 6 with his wife Ava, their toddler Caleb, in tow. I explained what happened. Marcus clenched his jaw but nodded. He too had tasted Geneva's venom over the years. We planned a sunset picnic on the riverfront, exactly where our family once held fireworks parties. Geneva texted a single line at 6:40. "I'm not apologizing for speaking truth." I responded, "Meet us by the old pecan tree if you want the rest of the truth." She showed at 7:10, Vincent trailing behind, FaceTiming some colleague. As Crimson's sun bled into the water, I handed the basket to Geneva. "What's this?" she snapped. "Your portion." She lifted the bread, nose wrinkling. "Carbs? Really? Where's the deed?" I gave Marcus what he earned. Respect and legacy. You get nostalgia, bananas, sugar, and a lesson about what happens when contempt passes your lips. Her cheeks blanched. Vincent lowered his phone. "You're disinheriting me over coffee?" she hissed. "No," I replied softly. "Over the decade, you've treated kindness as weakness. The spit was merely the period at the end of a long, bitter sentence you wrote yourself." She glared at Marcus. "You'd accept this theft?" He met her eyes, gentle yet firm. "I'd accept our mother's dignity." Geneva's shoulders sagged. For a heartbeat, I saw the little girl clutching firefly jars. Then venom returned. "Lawyers will fix this." She stormed to her Lexus, peeling away in a spray of gravel. A hush fell, broken only by cicadas and Caleb's innocent giggle. I exhaled, muscles trembling. Justice's heavy armor. Harold slipped his arm around my waist, whispering, "Proud of you, Lolo." Tears blurred the horizon. But don't think the story ends there. Geneva isn't the surrendering type. Tomorrow she'll come armed with legal loopholes and social media pity posts. And I'm about to learn how far a mother's love can stretch before truth snaps it back. The next morning broke humid and gray, as if the sky itself reserved judgment. I barely poured Harold's oatmeal before my phone vibrated with a storm of notifications, texts from church friends, neighbors, even my old principal. Geneva had fired the first salvo, a glossy Facebook post where she, in soft filtered tears, claimed her aging mother is being manipulated by predatory relatives, and threatened with disinheritance for encouraging healthier habits. Attached was a photo of the banana bread basket, captioned, "Carbs over care, this is my punishment for loving my parents." I almost laughed. Then I noticed the share count, already in the thousands. Sympathy emojis flooded her feed. Local bloggers screenshot the post. Morning radio hosts debated elder abuse by adult children. Somehow, I was both victim and villain in a story I hadn't written. By 9:30, a white SUV with the station logo WBRZ9 rolled into our driveway. A young reporter stepped out, makeup flawless, microphone poised. "Mrs. Washington, we'd like your response to your daughter's allegations." Harold's hand trembled on his spoon. Anger flickered, but I inhaled slow. The furnace inside me refused to burn recklessly. "You're welcome on my porch," I told the reporter, "but you'll film the full truth." I rang Marcus. He arrived in 15 minutes, laptop under his arm. Ava live streaming from her phone to ensure no edits warped our words. Transparency became our shield. The interview began politely. Did Geneva spit in my coffee? Yes. Did I call her a snake? Regretfully, yes. Why disinherit? Because legacy is not a bribe, it's a blessing reserved for grateful hearts. I spoke of Harold's health, of respect unthreaded stitch by stitch. The reporter's eyes widened at my calm. Live comments poured hearts and fire emojis on Ava's feed. Mid-interview, Geneva drove up. She strode past camera cords, voice hot with disbelief. "Mother, how dare you exploit this?" I met her gaze. "Exploit? Geneva, you started the broadcast." She pivoted to the reporter. "You're filming elder abuse. They've coerced my parents." A hush. Then quiet Harold, stood. His voice, raspy but steady, carried across the porch. "The only coercion is disrespect. We love you, Geneva, but we won't fund cruelty." Her cheeks flushed. Reporters love a pivot. Mike swung toward her. She sputtered about legal rights, fiduciary responsibility. Marcus tapped his tablet. On screen appeared Geneva's private texts, leaked by a sympathetic cousin, messages mocking Harold's cough, plotting to sell the riverfront acreage for a condo in Miami. The reporter read them aloud. Public opinion pirouetted mid-sentence. Geneva's jaw clenched. You think this ruins me? I'm VP of Gulf South Bank. And that's when Ava, eyes flinty, revealed her ace. About that, Gulf South's code of conduct forbids executives from public harassment of vulnerable adults. Their board meets at 2. We've forwarded these clips. Silence thundered. Geneva's phone buzzed. One glance drained color from her face. She spun on her heel, heels clacking a retreat. The news van captured her exit. Hashtags bloomed. #Spitgate, #banana bread justice. After Cruz left, porch railings creaked under neighbors arriving with casseroles and awkward hugs. Support warmed the humid air, but I felt no triumph. Only a tired ache where maternal joy should live. Harold squeezed my hand. Love her still, he whispered. Love, yes, but love and boundaries can share a fence. That evening, Geneva's husband, Vincent, arrived alone. He held a legal envelope and eyes rimmed red. She's been suspended pending review, he said. She's furious, says she'll sue for defamation. He paused. I think she needs help. He slid the envelope across our dining table. Power of attorney papers Geneva had forged months earlier, naming herself controller of our medical decisions. My stomach lurched. Vincent whispered, I found them in her desk. Couldn't let this go on. I thanked him. Tears pricking. Betrayal wore deeper roots than I knew. We shredded the documents, then prayed with Vincent for Geneva's heart. Next morning, a notice arrived. Geneva had filed a restraining order claiming we threatened her with violence. Court date in 2 weeks. Marcus booked a lawyer specializing in family defamation. Ava organized screenshots and witness lists. Meanwhile, community support morphed into tangible aid. A local coffeehouse printed Respect the Mug on merch, donating proceeds to elder abuse hotlines. Yet my spirit sagged beneath paperwork and public spectacle. So I sought counsel from Pastora Evelyn, 92 and sharper than any judge. She listened, then asked, Child, what does Geneva truly thirst for? Control, I answered. No, she corrected gently. Validation. Control is her cup. Validation is what she tries to fill it with. Pastora advised a letter, not groveling, but truth laced with grace. Offer her a seat at the table of healing. She may refuse, but you'll know the invitation is real. I wrote that night, ink blurring when tears fell. I acknowledged my harsh words, affirmed love, and set firm conditions. Therapy, apology, and respect. I ended. The torch of our family's dignity burns for you too when you're ready to stand in its light. Marcus delivered the letter via Vincent. Days ticked. Social media moved on to new scandals, but court loomed. On hearing day, we entered the courthouse, expecting fireworks. Instead, we met Geneva in the hall, eyes swollen. She withdrew the restraining order, voice shaking. I don't want more war. Our lawyer nodded. Paperwork shredded. Geneva asked to speak privately. In a side room scented of stale coffee, she broke, sobbed about pressure, envy of Marcus's closeness to us, fear of aging. She admitted forging the power documents, confessed the spit a childish lash. I don't know why I can't stop hurting people I love, she whispered. I pulled a tissue, wiped her cheeks. Because pain untreated oozes onto bystanders. She laughed through tears. Trust you to use nurse metaphors. And for the first time in years, warmth flickered. Rebuilding wouldn't be instant. Therapy appointments booked, property deed remained with Marcus, but with a clause. If Geneva completed a year of counseling and demonstrated sustained respect, she'd share stewardship under consensus rules. Consequences remained, but mercy cracked the door. 2 months later, we gathered for another Tuesday breakfast. Geneva arrived early with turkey bacon and, miracle of miracles, fresh banana bread. She placed my favorite china mug before me, poured coffee, stepped back. Mama, this cup stays pure today, she said, voice trembling. I lifted it, sipped. Bitter, sweet, and something new. Hope. On the porch, Harold strummed hymns. Caleb chased fireflies in dawnlight. The torch of dignity still burned, its flame taller now that winds of conflict had tested it. But dear listener, storms don't consult calendars. In Chapter 2, Part 1, a hidden clause in Maybelle's original deed will threaten to undo our fragile truce, and Geneva must choose whether to protect the family she almost lost or watch the torch flicker out again. Stay close. The next gust arrives sooner than you think. The truce lasted exactly 28 days, long enough for Harold's blood pressure to dip, for Geneva to attend 3 therapy sessions, and for me to believe the river of resentment might finally run clear. Then the certified letter arrived. I spotted it in the mailbox. Thick envelope stamped Baton Rouge Clerk of Court. Inside, a formal notice of title irregularity hearing regarding Maybell's riverfront deed, requested by an entity named Pelican Horizon Development LLC. The date? 1 week away. The attached exhibit? A photocopy of a clause hidden in the original deed, a clause none of us had seen. Should the property lie fallow for a period exceeding 12 consecutive months, or ownership reverts to the nearest surviving descendant, unless that descendant has been legally disinherited. Nearest surviving descendant, Geneva. And because Harold's health had prevented farming or picnics for 13 months, technically the land was fallow. Marcus's new deed, though recorded, could be voided. Pelican Horizon sought to purchase the reversion rights from Geneva. Harold sank into his recliner, eyes wide. Could your mama really insert such a clause? She trusted family to keep the land alive, I murmured, anger and shame tangling. My neglect during Harold's illness gave loophole hunters a doorway. We called Miss Bellamy. She confirmed the clause's authenticity, but doubted a court would strip Marcus's title without a fight, unless Geneva, allied with the developer. My stomach clenched. Did therapy soften her heart or sharpen her strategy? I dialed Geneva, straight to voicemail. Vincent answered my text an hour later. She's in meetings, I'll tell her. Non-committal. Anxiety gnawed. Marcus flew in that night, face drawn. Ava stayed home with Caleb, emailing digital petitions. We drove to the acreage at dawn, dew-soaked grass shimmering. Pecan trees leaned heavy with untended branches. Wildflowers bloomed in anarchic joy. The land felt alive, not fallow, yet legal terms ignored poetry. Marcus sighed. We need documented use, farming, community events, before the hearing. What about a pop-up festival, I suggested. Picnic, music, volunteer cleanup. Marcus smiled. Harold clapped approval. We scheduled the Maybell revival for Saturday, 2 days before court. Flyers flooded social media. Church groups roasted corn. A local bluegrass band offered gratis tunes. Ava designed posters remotely. Bring life back to ancestral soil. Family drama optional. Likes exploded. On festival morning, Geneva's Lexus appeared at the gate. She stepped out wearing jeans and sneakers, rare casual. My heart fluttered hope, but her eyes held conflict. I came to watch, she said, not to sabotage. Marcus approached, wariness evident. Did Pelican Horizon contact you? She nodded. They offered me a 7-figure payout if I assert reversion rights. I inhaled. And your answer? She gazed over the field. Children chasing kites, retirees planting saplings. Her shoulders eased. Money's loud, but regret is louder. She handed Marcus a signed affidavit. I waive any claim to reversion. Relief crashed through me like river water over stones. Yet storms brew beneath clear skies. At 3:30, a Pelican Horizon attorney arrived with a county inspector claiming code violations, unauthorized gathering, food safety issues, liability. They threatened to shut us down. Evidence we'd failed stewardship. Geneva stepped forward, voice steel-lined, reminding them trespass laws applied. The attorney smirked. See you in court. Courtroom Monday buzzed. Pelican's counsel argued land abandonment. We countered with festival footage, community affidavits, Geneva's waiver. Judge Rousseau, a brisk woman with hurricane eyes, challenged Pelican. Why pursue reversion when rightful heir and grantor occupy and maintain the property? Pelican cited future public benefit of luxury condos. Rousseau raised a brow. Benefit to whom? Then Geneva shocked everyone. She requested to speak. The judge allowed. My parents' land is a living quilt, she said, voice steady. I forgot that when I chose contempt over gratitude. Today I reaffirm, the only legacy worth inheriting is one stitched with respect. She handed the clerk a second document, transfer of her waiver into a conservation easement, permanent protection against commercial development. Pelican's counsel sputtered. Rousseau smiled thinly. Motion to dismiss granted. The land remains with the Washington Family Trust bound by the easement. Court adjourned. Crowd applause washed the oak-paneled room. Harold exhaled shaky joy. Marcus hugged Geneva, first genuine embrace in years. I whispered thanks to Maybell's unseen spirit. Outside, reporters gathered. Geneva approached me. Mama, the deed may be safe, but our relationship isn't fixed overnight. I'll keep showing up if you keep holding me accountable. I squeezed her hand. Accountability and grace walk the same road, child. As sunset painted the sky pecan leaf green, we returned to the land. Geneva helped Harold onto the porch swing we'd hauled under the oldest tree. Marcus planted a revived 2025 sign. Ava FaceTimed in, tears shining. And I brewed coffee over a camp stove. 2 mugs, no spit, just steam and second chances. 3 weeks after Judge Rousseau's gavel saved Maybell's land, an early-season tropical storm rolled north from the Gulf, dragging sheets of rain heavy enough to bend the pecan branches sideways. Baton Rouge officials named it Storm Iris. Harold called it a test of our easement vows. Whatever the name, 20 inches of water in 36 hours has a way of turning rich, loamy soil into churned chocolate pudding. At dawn on the second day, the parish levee sirens wailed. Marcus and I sloshed through shin-deep water, tarping the porch swing, securing propane tanks. Geneva raced up the muddy drive in a rented pickup, Vincent behind the wheel, and the bed piled with sandbags. Her hair, once boardroom smooth, stuck to her cheeks. "Insurance adjusters will ask for mitigation proof," she shouted over the wind. "Let's not hand Pelican Horizon fresh ammo." We formed a bucket line. Marcus, Geneva, Vincent, 2 teenage volunteers from church, and me, risk protesting with each soggy 40-pound sandbag hauled. Harold managed command posts from the back porch, logging times and photos for FEMA. Water kept rising. By evening, the river had swallowed the lowest field, the one where Caleb chased kites during the festival. Electricity flickered, died. My phone buzzed with a text from Ava. "Satellite shows levee overflow near you. Evacuate if crest passes 6 feet. We had 4 feet and climbing." But leaving wasn't simple. The conservation easement agreement, signed jubilantly days earlier, required us to file a post-storm stewardship plan within 72 hours or risk forfeiting the tax credit funding that kept the land safe from developers. If we evacuated without documentation, Pelican Horizon's lawyers could argue neglect, a legal flood riding the coattails of a literal one. Geneva paced the front room by lantern glow. "We need drone footage," she said. "Aerial proof we defended perimeters." Marcus barked a humorless laugh. "Sure, I'll just pull a drone out of my pocket." "Vincent's firm owns one," she countered. "Thermal camera, GPS timestamp. He'll bring it at first light." Vincent nodded. "I'll wade back to the truck, grab dry batteries." I watched them. 2 people who barely tolerated each other last month now, volleying logistics like crisis-tempered comrades. Storms, it seemed, could sculpt new bridges from driftwood. Around midnight, the water peaked within inches of the farmhouse threshold, paused, then began to seep away as winds shifted west. We dozed in chairs, boots on, until the rooster, confused but punctual, crowed over the drone of retreating rain. First light revealed soggy devastation, flattened wildflowers, toppled saplings, fences listing like old sailors. But the house stood, and the ancient pecan sentinel still spread its wounded canopy. Vincent launched the drone, its buzz mingling with frog chorus. Geneva recorded a narrated sweep. Erosion contained with sandbags, no chemical runoff, native species intact. Her voice cracked once, but she cleared it and continued. By afternoon, we filed the stewardship plan electronically from the parish emergency center, generator humming, neighbors queuing for bottled water. A conservation trust representative, Ms. Ramirez, zoomed in. Her usually bland expression displayed genuine relief. "Your timely filing secures the easement grant," she said, "but funding dispersal requires a sustainability budget." 30 days. Marcus rubbed temples. "We set aside 10% of my salary. That covers seed and soil tests, not full restoration." Geneva crossed arms. "Pelican offered me 7 figures. I declined. Maybe we can court ethical investors instead." Ms. Ramirez leaned closer to her webcam. "New federal programs reward carbon capture projects. If you reforest with longleaf pines, you qualify." Harold perked up. "My grandfather planted longleaf. They thrive here." Excitement sparked, but costs loomed. Seedlings, labor, monitoring drones. Geneva thumbed her phone, eyes widening. "There's a green growth pitch competition in New Orleans next week. 50,000 grant for best carbon map project." She looked at Marcus. "Partner with me. We'll present together." Silence stretched. Marcus had forgiven, but collaboration required a deeper trust. He studied her face, not the polished banker mask, but the storm-drenched version, raw and earnest. Finally, he nodded. "We pitch as equals." Preparation consumed the week. Geneva constructed financial projections. Marcus coded a 3D model of the property using the drone's topography. Harold rehearsed them on storytelling. Start with Maybelle's quilt metaphor, cherte, he advised. I baked banana bread for travel, tradition reclaimed. New Orleans welcomed us with jazz riffs floating through humid air. The conference hall glittered green banners. Venture capitalists in linen suits sipped kombucha beside teenage climate activists, sporting nose rings and resolve. We were slotted last, graveyard position or grand finale spotlight, depending on optimism. Backstage, Geneva squeezed my hand. If we win, will you trust I've changed? Change, I'd learned, isn't an event, it's a direction. I trust the trajectory, I said, and I'll cheer every mile. The MC introduced the Maybelle Carbon Quilt, restoring heritage, capturing hope. Geneva strode center stage, voice firm. This isn't just a plot of land, it's a carbon sink with 80 years of rural wisdom. She handed the mic to Marcus, who toggled the 3D model, flood zones, reforestation plots, drone monitoring overlays. Audience murmured appreciation. Then came Q&A. A venture capitalist asked, return on investment? Geneva answered, carbon credits saleable on open market, ecotourism cabins, pecan harvest under pine canopy. A professor grilled them on biodiversity. Marcus cited species data from Caleb's kite field, now frog habitat. Final vote required audience app download. Scores appeared in real time like reality show suspense. We clinched first by a slim 2% margin, $50,000 secured. Celebration spilled into Bourbon Street beignets. Marcus laughed, dusted with powdered sugar. Geneva danced to a brass band, more carefree than I'd seen since her 5th grade field day. She raised a beignet salute to quilts and carbon. Back home, funds financed seed orders, erosion control, volunteer stipends. Geneva visited weekly, jeans gradually replacing silk even on work days. Marcus drafted long-leaf planting maps. Ava designed a website inviting schools for field trips titled Spit to Spirit, A Family's Land Redemption. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. One evening, Geneva found Harold repairing a fence post. She knelt, took the hammer. Rest, Daddy, she whispered. He watched her work, pride soft as dusk. Later, Geneva joined me on the porch. Night insects tuned their orchestra, she exhaled. Mama, sometimes I still feel the snake inside, ready to strike when I'm stressed. I sipped coffee, fresh, pure. Snakes shed skin, keep shedding. She nodded, tears shining. Thank you for keeping the torch lit long enough for me to see by it. I touched her cheek. Thank you for choosing the light. We sat in easy quiet, listening to frogs and far-off laughter from volunteers camping under pecans. Storms will come again. Levees may groan. Legal clauses may lurk. But when a family rehammers their fences together and plants trees whose shade they may never sit under, the future tilts toward hope. Next spring, those long leaf pines will break soil, tiny green promises waving against southern sky, and if a daughter ever feels venom rise with stress, she need only walk among them, breathe resin and earth, and remember the day she swapped a spit-soaked cup for seeds of renewal. 1 month after Storm Iris, the land smelled of new beginnings. Petrichor mixed with pine sap and fresh-turned soil. Longleaf seedlings, each no taller than a school ruler, pricked the riverbank in neat rows where community volunteers had planted them. Geneva insisted on color-coding the GPS flags, green for pines, yellow for pecan seedlings we'd grafted from century-old stock, blue for wildflower restoration. Marcus joked that the field looked like a birthday cake sprouting confetti. The conservation grant's first disbursement, $25,000, landed in the project account on a crisp Monday morning. We celebrated with barbecue and gospel blues played from Harold's old Bluetooth speaker. Spirits soared until Tuesday, when Geneva's inbox pinged with a message that felt like deja vu. Subject: Heritage Asset Acquisition Proposal, confidential sender, River Vista Holdings, LLC. The email praised our impressive restoration vision, then cut to the chase, $2.8 million for a 51% stake in the property's carbon credit future and limited eco-lodging footprint. Translation: luxury tiny houses for influencer retreats. Marcus's eyes widened at the figure: college for Caleb, healthcare buffer for Harold, a cushion for Geneva's therapy bills, but the fine print reeked of developer cunning. River Vista could overturn planting plans, replace native species with fast-growth eucalyptus, and petition to dissolve the conservation easement after 10 years, citing public economic benefit. The board of our fledgling nonprofit, 3 voting members, me, Marcus, Geneva, had to decide by week's end. Ava, remote CFO, held advisory sway but no vote. Harold abstained. He'd rather mend fences than parse contracts. We convened in the farmhouse dining room, now dubbed the war table. Rain pattered outside. Springstorm Django, mercifully mild. Geneva laid out spreadsheets showing how far the grant money would stretch. Seedlings, soil tests, volunteer lunches, yes. Long-term drone monitoring and dam repair, no. River Vista's offer solves the gap, she argued, pointer tapping ROI graphs. Marcus countered with integrity metrics, loss of control, risk to biodiversity, potential backlash from supporters who donated to preserve, not profit. He flashed a chart of projected carbon credit revenue if we remained independent, modest, but stable. I listened, heart tugged between generational prudence and generational purpose. 2.8 million could fund more than land. It could insulate my family from future storms of every kind. Yet Maybelle's spirit seemed to whisper that legacy measured in dollars often depreciates faster than soil washed by rain. That night, Geneva paced the porch, coffee steaming. Mama, you know I hurt you. I'm trying to fix things. This deal could rebuild college funds, pay off Marcus's mortgage, upgrade Dad's meds. I sipped my own cup. Black, pure. Money is a tool. Whose hands will hold it after the ink dries? She sighed. I fear scarcity. Scarcity of what? I asked. Security, love. Her voice cracked. Rain softened to mist around us. Love's ledger doesn't print zeros, I whispered, patting her hand. 3 days later, we met with River Vista's polished envoy, Christopher Vale, hair slicked, pocket square crisp. He toured the acreage in pristine boots that never touched mud, helicopter drop-off. He cooed at seedlings, promised eco-chic cabins using reclaimed cypress, and offered internship funds for local schools. Marcus asked about Clause 7.2, easement dissolution. Vale waved it off. Purely pro forma? We're partners, not pirates. Geneva's brow furrowed, but she pocketed the brochure. Marcus caught my gaze. Skepticism mirrored. Decision deadline dawned sunny. We gathered at the war table, voting stones in hand, white for accept, black for decline. Harold prayed over the jar, then stepped aside. We dropped stones unseen, 2 white, 1 black. I'd voted black, Geneva and Marcus white. Shock rippled through me. Marcus had seemed steadfast. He avoided my eyes, jaw tense. Geneva exhaled relief tinged with guilt. We signed an acceptance intent, contingent on a 30-day due diligence period. Vale left with champagne vows. That night, Harold found me under the pecan tree, tears carving tracks. I feel like I betrayed Maybelle. Marcus's voice sounded behind me. He stepped into moonlight. I voted white for Caleb. College in 15 years might cost more than this whole project. I cupped his cheek. A tree's worth isn't in lumber alone. He nodded. Due diligence buys time. Maybe deal dies under its own weight. Within a week, red flags unfurled. Ava dug into River Vista's investor deck, front company for guess who, Pelican Horizon. Vale was ex-VP under a new mask. Clause 9.1 allowed foreclosure if carbon credit yields missed quarterly targets, effectively a delayed land grab. Marcus confronted Geneva. She paled. I should have seen it. Desperate eyes, blur, fine print. We called an emergency board meeting. Under bylaws, unanimous vote could rescind intent within 10 days. Geneva hesitated, torn between hope of funds and dread of repeating betrayal. That evening, Vincent found her studying old family albums. He pointed at a photo. Young Geneva in mud-splattered dress holding Maybelle's hand, grinning. Which Geneva signed that intent? He asked. Tears answered. Next morning, she motioned to rescind. River Vista threatened breach penalties. Ms. Bellamy countered with misrepresentation evidence. Vale backed down, slinking into helicopter rotors. Public statement followed. Family declines profit to preserve heritage. Donor streams tripled. A sustainable agriculture nonprofit matched our grant. Caleb drew a crayon poster. No pirates, just pecans, which went viral. One night, Geneva joined Harold and me shelling nuts on the porch. Funny, she said. I spent half my life chasing more, but enough was here all along, waiting for respect. I smiled, handing her a perfect half pecan. Enough tastes sweeter when shared. Lightning flickered distant, but the river stayed calm. The seedlings swayed, resilient, and as cicadas tuned up, I felt the torch burn steady. Money couldn't fan it, and fear couldn't snuff it. Our legacy, once spit-stained, now rooted deeper than any developer's shovel. Pelican Horizon did not slink away after the River Vista debacle. 2 weeks later, while Geneva and I plotted spring wildflower corridors, A deputy in a rain-soaked slicker arrived with a thick envelope stamped U.S. District Court, Southern District. The corporation had filed for an emergency injunction claiming our family had interfered with lawful commercial interests and, more alarmingly, alleged misappropriation of federal conservation funds. Until the hearing, every dollar in our project account was frozen. Payroll for local seedling crews halted overnight. Drone monitor leases went unpaid. Volunteers, though willing, lacked gas money to reach the site. Marcus's face hardened as he read the docket. They're starving us into selling. He slammed the folder shut. Geneva's fingers trembled, but her eyes flared. Then we feed on publicity. We called an emergency live stream from the farmhouse porch. Ava set up ring lights. Harold read a psalm off camera. Caleb colored signs that said, "Save our seedlings." Geneva, once allergic to vulnerability, faced the lens barefaced, voice steady. She explained the injunction, detailed the land's history, and ended with a dare. If Pelican Horizon wants to choke heritage, let them do it in daylight. The stream exploded. Shares flew, donations attempted but bounced due to the freeze. So supporters mailed checks, gift cards, even rolls of quarters. Local cafes offered brew for $1 if patrons signed our online petition to Congress for tougher easement protections. Within 48 hours, the petition hit 50,000 signatures. Regional news vans set up a semi-permanent presence at the gate. Pelican's lawyers moved to gag us. Judge Howell denied the request, but set the hearing date 2 weeks away, citing docket backlog. 2 weeks of frozen funds felt like winter on seedbeds. Geneva proposed a pecan for pecan drive. We mailed heritage pecan halves to donors who prepaid postage, each nut a literal seed of solidarity. Postal clerks groaned. Social feeds flooded with pecan selfies tagged #nutsforheritage. Still, costs loomed. We pivoted again. Marcus and Ava coded an augmented reality app overnight, letting users plant virtual longleaf pines on a 3D map for $5 apiece. The app overran servers within hours. Even a retired astronaut tweeted his virtual tree orbiting the property. Public sentiment raged bright, and Pelican's board panicked. One drizzly dawn, a sleek black sedan crept up the drive, flags fluttering on the hood. Out stepped Senator Grace Landry, chair of the Senate Aging Committee. She'd watched Geneva's live stream aboard a red-eye from D.C. and wanted a first-hand look at grassroots elder heritage activism. Translation, the torch's spotlight had become a political stage. We walked her through rows of seedlings gleaming with rain pearls. Geneva explained carbon sequestration. Harold told stories of Maybelle's gospel picnics. Caleb presented her with a jar of wildflower seeds. The senator's staff captured every moment. By afternoon, she announced on Twitter a proposed Heritage Guardian Act to fast-track injunction relief for conservation easements under hostile corporate attack. Journalists christened it the Pecan Bill. Pelican's PR machine sputtered under the scrutiny. Their spokesperson tried spinning elder fraud allegations on cable news. Geneva countered with bank statements live on TikTok, proving every grant dollar still in escrow. Ava unleashed receipts of Pelican's shell donations to dark money PACs. Public sentiment tilted so far the corporation disabled comments on all platforms. Yet legal gears ground slow. Judge Howell required us to post $1 million bond to lift the freeze, money we didn't have. I went to bed that night under a quilt Maybelle had stitched from flour sacks, asking God how many more hurdles were necessary to prove worthiness. At 3 a.m., Geneva knocked on my door, eyes bright despite exhaustion. "I have collateral," she whispered. She held out a small mahogany box. Inside lay her grandmother's wedding ring, the one Geneva inherited at 18. Appraised at $60,000, not the bond, but a statement. My throat tightened. "Child, your legacy isn't measured in diamonds." She smiled sad. "Maybe not, but sometimes a stone can wedge open a locked door." Marcus appeared, holding the River Vista intent document, signed but rescinded. He'd discovered a clause. If either party dissolved in bad faith, the wronged side could claim a penalty lien on the other's assets. With Pelican owning River Vista, we had leverage worth 90% of the bond. Ms. Bellamy filed the claim pre-dawn. Judge Howell reduced the required bond to $50,000, covered by Geneva's ring plus community pledges. The freeze lifted. Backed by funds, volunteers refueled tractors, drone flights resumed, and an unexpected ally stepped forward. Lionel Reyes, the repentant gunman from months prior, now in witness protection out of state. Through his attorney, he sent sworn affidavits detailing Pelican's continuing intimidation schemes, including the injunction strategy. The deposition hit the court docket a day before the hearing. Judge Howell listened to oral arguments in a packed chamber. Pelican's counsel leaned on contractual minutiae. Ms. Bellamy invoked public interest, conservation precedent, and Reyes's bombshell testimony. When the judge requested clarification on Pelican's shell structure, their lead lawyer stammered. Howell's gavel struck. Injunction vacated, plaintiff ordered to pay our legal fees plus court sanctions for bad faith litigation. The gallery erupted. Harold wept quiet tears. Geneva hugged Marcus so tight his glasses skewed. Outside, cameras captured the moment Geneva slipped Maybelle's ring back onto her finger, press hailing it the ring that sank a corporation. Pelican's stock dipped 8% overnight. The CEO resigned 2 days later. Meanwhile, the Heritage Guardian Act gained bipartisan co-sponsors, turbocharged by public fandom for our virtual tree app. Ava announced integration with national park donations. Downloads doubled again. One golden Sunday, we gathered under the pecan sentinel for a Thanksgiving potluck. Geneva grilled turkey bacon. Progress. Marcus projected drone footage onto a bedsheet. Caleb danced between rows of picnic tables, handing out pecan halves like communion wafers. I stood back, letting the scene imprint on my heart. Harold sidled up, offering a styrofoam cup of sweet tea. Think Maybelle's pleased? I looked at the seedlings shimmering in evening sun, at the volunteers laughing, at Geneva crouching beside an elderly neighbor explaining carbon capture, and felt an answer deeper than words. Storms will surely come again, financial, literal, emotional, but roots had sunk deeper. The land had a future, the children an example, the elders a torch still burning. And as I raised my cup, I whispered to the breeze, legacy confirmed. In the final chapter, federal passage of the Heritage Guardian Act thrusts Lorraine onto Capitol Hill, where one unexpected face in the crowd threatens to reignite old wounds. Will the torch shine over the nation? Or flicker under political spotlight? Stay tuned for Chapter 4. The invitation arrived on thick cream paper sealed with a gold emboss of the U.S. Capitol dome. You are hereby requested as a key witness for the Senate committee vote on the Heritage Guardian Act. I read the letter twice, hand trembling. Me, Lorraine Washington, summoned to Washington, D.C. to watch a bill born of pecans, spit, and second chances come up for vote. Geneva and Marcus exchanged a glance that held years of conflict and reconciliation. We all go, Marcus declared. Ava booked flights, secured Caleb a pocket-sized suit, and recruited volunteers to tend seedlings during our absence. Harold, doctor-cleared but still fragile, insisted on traveling too. He said he'd be Maybelle's eyes in the chamber. 2 days later, we stepped into the Capitol's marbled halls. The air smelled of polish and anticipation. Geneva clutched a binder of easement photos. Marcus carried a mason jar of riverbank soil as tangible testimony. I wore Maybelle's church gloves and Geneva's restored wedding ring. Both felt like armor. Committee room 226 filled with press, lobbyists, park ranger hats, and an unexpected silhouette near the back. Christopher Vale. Clean-shaven, now consultant to an energy firm, he nodded politely as if we were luncheon acquaintances, not sparring partners. Geneva stiffened. He can't influence a vote, can he? I whispered. Marcus shrugged, scanning the chamber. The gavel struck. Senator Landry called the session. Opening statements lauded grassroots stewardship. Then came opposition. A coalition of land development interests warning that over-empowering sentimental heritage could stifle economic growth. Their witness? Christopher Vale. He approached the mic, crafted charm dripping. Ladies and gentlemen, I commend the Washington family's spirit, but freezing millions of acres under feel-good easements harms our national housing crisis. He waved a chart showing rising land costs. My stomach twisted. Geneva's jaw clenched. She rose. Madam Chair, may I respond? Landry granted. Geneva spoke not with anger but clarity. Economic growth divorced from gratitude breeds crisis. Our acreage now supports carbon markets, agritourism, and youth internships. That's growth, rooted in respect. She held up a sapling photo. Longleaf pine first-year candles glowing green. Cameras clicked. Senators questioned both sides. Marcus poured a riverbank soil onto a cloth, explaining carbon sequestration metrics. Caleb, perched on Harold's lap, waved a crayon drawing of the land quilt, diffusing tension with pure innocence. Vote time. Roll call echoed, ayes and nays tallying like heartbeats. Final count, 11-4 in favor. Applause thundered. I pressed glove to lips. Geneva hugged Marcus, tears streaking foundation. Veil slipped out quietly. Senator Landry invited me to the dais. Mrs. Washington, would you like to offer a closing remark? I faced the microphone. Room hushed. I stand here because one morning my daughter spat in my coffee, I began. Gasps, cameras zooming. That ugliness forced us to confront what legacy means. Turns out, legacy is the long-leaf seedling my grandson will shade his children under. I pray this act lets every family protect their quilt, stitched with respect and accountability. Afterward, lobbyists lined up for photos. Journalists sought sound bites. But one encounter stilled me. Christopher Vale approaching, gaze softer. For what it's worth, your speech moved me, he said quietly. Maybe there's room for a prophet and preservation. I offered a measured smile. There's room for repentance first. He nodded, pocket square suddenly looking heavy. Back home a week later, church bells rang as we drove past the riverfront, now blooming with early wildflowers. Volunteers waved. A new sign read Federal Heritage Guardian Site, Brazil 1. Caleb planted the ceremonial 100th seedling, cheering as Harold snapped photos. That evening, Geneva brewed coffee, poured 2 cups, and carried them to the porch swing. She handed me the mug. Steam rose, the surface unbroken. No spit, she joked, voice tremoring. I sipped. Tastes like peace. Moonlight dusted the seedlings. Frogs sang. Somewhere an owl hooted approval. I felt the torch settle into many hands. Marcus's code, Ava's tenacity, Caleb's laughter, Geneva's humbled heart. Maybelle's quilt of land lay safe, its stitches reinforced by storms, lawsuits, and the steady work of love. Harold wrapped an arm around my shoulders. It's finished, Lolo. I leaned into him, eyes shining. Finished and just beginning. When the porch light flicked off for the night, the torch of dignity glowed on. No longer a lone flame, but a constellation guiding any wanderer brave enough to choose respect over contempt. And that, dear listener, is a legacy no developer can ever claim.